Norway waited 28 years for this moment, and Erling Haaland needed less than 40 minutes to make it look like the wait was worth every single second. 25 years old, the best striker on the planet by his own coach's admission, walking out for his first ever World Cup match. And inside one half of football, the rest of the tournament already had a reason to be afraid. Norway hadn't been to a World Cup since 1998. 28 years of one of the most talent-rich football nations in Europe, sitting at home every 4 years, watching everyone else play in the tournament that actually matters. And the man who finally ended that drought wasn't even born the last time Norway qualified. Haaland scored twice against Iraq, a close-range finish in the 29th minute. Then, 4 minutes later, he punished a horrendous goalkeeping error to make it 2. Norway won 4-1, and just like that, Haaland had a World Cup goal, then a second one, in the same match he'd waited his entire career to play. This is a golden generation for Norway now, former Denmark goalkeeper Kasper Schmeichel said before the match. They've got the man, the main man, and any team with him is going to have a chance. 2 Champions League winners' medals, back-to-back Premier League titles, a goal-scoring record at Manchester City that has genuinely broken football's understanding of what a striker's number should look like, and now, finally, a World Cup stage to match it. This is a man who has scored on his Bundesliga debut, his Champions League debut, his Premier League debut, and now his World Cup debut too. Every single time the stakes have gotten bigger, Haaland has simply gotten better. And in this video, we're going to show you exactly why the rest of this tournament should be terrified. But this is bigger than one devastating debut, because 2026 is not a normal World Cup, and that makes Haaland even more dangerous. This tournament has more teams, more matches, and an extra knockout round, which means the margins are strange. A slow start can bury a favorite before they even understand the group, but a fast start from a striker like Haaland can completely change the shape of the Golden Boot race, the group table, and the fear factor around an entire nation. Norway did not just win their opener. They announced that every opponent now has to spend the next few days preparing for one very specific nightmare. What happens if Haaland gets one chance before your game plan even settles?
The numbers that got Norway here. Let's actually appreciate how Norway ended up at this World Cup in the first place, because it wasn't close. Haaland finished European qualifying as the outright top scorer across the entire continent. 16 goals, more than any other player from any other nation, in a Norway team that had not qualified for a single major tournament since Haaland was born. That is not an exaggeration for effect. Norway's last World Cup appearance was 1998. Their last European Championship was 2000. An entire generation of Norwegian football fans had never seen their country play at a tournament that mattered. And then this specific generation arrived. Martin Ødegaard, the Arsenal captain, one of the best creative midfielders in the Premier League, wearing the armband. Alexander Sørloth, who's been banging in goals for Atletico Madrid. A spine of players who for the first time in nearly 3 decades are actually good enough to make qualification look comfortable rather than miraculous. But it all runs through one man. Haaland's qualifying campaign wasn't just productive, it was the best in Europe, full stop. 16 goals from a striker whose senior international tally now sits at a barely believable 57 goals and 51 caps for his country. 51 of those caps have come under current head coach Ståle Solbakken, who built almost the entire identity of this Norway team around getting the ball into dangerous areas as quickly as possible. Because why wouldn't you, when the man finishing those moves scores at a rate no other international striker can match? And that is the detail that makes Norway feel different this time. This is not the old version of a small nation trying to survive with spirit, discipline, and one lucky counterattack. Norway now have a clear attacking logic. Ødegaard gives them control and vision between the lines. Sørloth gives them another physical forward who can occupy defenders and stop teams from simply collapsing everything on Haaland. The wide players can stretch the pitch. The midfield does not need to dominate possession for 90 minutes. It just needs to create the right kind of possessions, the kind where one vertical pass or one early cross turns into panic. Against Iraq, Norway did not look like tourists finally arriving at the World Cup. They looked like a team that understood exactly what their weapon was.
Why he's different from every other striker at this tournament. Now here's the part that should genuinely worry the rest of Group I, and eventually the rest of the tournament. Haaland isn't just a goal scorer. Plenty of strikers score goals. What makes Haaland a problem is the sheer inevitability of it. He doesn't need a moment of brilliance. He doesn't need to beat 3 defenders or curl one into the top corner from 25 yards. He needs one half chance in 1 square yard of space, and the ball is in the net. Look at how his second goal against Iraq actually happened. The goalkeeper made a mistake. a genuinely basic error, taking too long on a routine passback. Most strikers would still need a second to react, to adjust their feet, to actually capitalize. Haaland was already moving before the ball arrived. He pressed, won it, and finished, all inside about 2 seconds. That predatory instinct, the refusal to ever switch off, even in a half where the ball mostly wasn't near him, is the entire reason Pep Guardiola built Manchester City's entire attacking structure around feeding him. And physically, he's simply built differently to almost every other forward at this tournament. 6'4", genuinely explosive over the first 5 yards despite his size. A finishing technique calm enough that even when goalkeepers guess correctly, he still scores anyway. Defenders who've played against him at club level for years still talk about how impossible he is to actually predict, not because he does anything especially flashy, but because he is relentlessly, mechanically efficient in the one job a striker actually has to do. The other thing is psychological. Defenders do not play normal football when Haaland is standing near them. They drop a yard deeper than they want to, they turn their shoulders earlier, goalkeepers hesitate because they know a loose touch can become a goal before they reset their feet. Center backs stop focusing only on the ball and start checking where he is every few seconds. That creates space for everyone else. Ødegaard gets an extra pocket. Sorloth gets a cleaner duel. Norway's runners get lanes they would not get if a normal striker were leading the line. That is why Haaland's impact is not limited to the goals he actually scores. His presence changes the geometry of the entire match. That efficiency is exactly why, even in a tournament filled with Mbappe, Messi, and a generation of attacking talent we may genuinely never see assembled again, Haaland's name is already being mentioned in the same breath for the Golden Boot. And the Golden Boot conversation matters here, because Haaland is not chasing it from behind. He has started with 2 goals in 1 match. In an expanded World Cup, where the best teams can potentially play deeper into a longer knockout path, that kind of opening changes everything. Mbappe has the pedigree, Messi has the story, Kane, Vinicius, Ronaldo, and the rest all have their own narratives, but Haaland has something just as powerful: volume, service, and no wasted motion. He is not a player who needs 10 shots to feel his way into a tournament. He is a player who can touch the ball 3 times in the box and walk away with 2 goals. That is terrifying in a short competition.
The honest concern: can Norway actually support him? But here's where we need to be fair about this, because Norway are not without questions of their own. This is a nation playing in its first World Cup in 28 years. There is no recent tournament pedigree to draw on, no collective muscle memory of how to manage a group stage, how to handle the physical and mental toll of 3 matches in 12 days, how to close games out when the pressure builds late. And Group I is not gentle. France, the 2022 runners-up, already off to a 3-1 win over Senegal in their own opener, with Kylian Mbappe scoring twice, and now sitting just 2 goals behind Miroslav Klose's all-time World Cup scoring record, are next up for Norway on the 26th of June. Before that, Senegal, the African champions, a side built on pace and physicality that will test Norway's defensive structure in completely different ways to Iraq. The honest question is whether Haaland can keep doing this without the service drying up the moment Norway face better organized opposition. Iraq, returning to the World Cup for the first time in roughly 40 years, were always going to give Norway space in the final third. France and Senegal will not be nearly as generous. If Norway's midfield can't consistently get the ball into dangerous areas, even a striker as ruthless as Haaland can find himself starved of the service that makes him so dangerous in the first place. Senegal are especially awkward because they can turn Norway's biggest strength into a stress test. They have the pace to defend higher, the physicality to compete in transition, and enough tournament experience to make the game uncomfortable rather than open. France are a different kind of problem altogether. Against them, Norway may spend long stretches without the ball, and Haaland may have to live off scraps. That is where this story becomes fascinating, because for Manchester City, Haaland often plays inside a machine designed to generate chances every few minutes. For Norway, he may only get 2 clear looks against elite opposition. The entire question is whether 2 looks are still enough. With Haaland, the scary answer is yes, they might be. This is the tension at the heart of Norway's entire tournament. They have in Haaland arguably the single most dangerous finisher in the competition. What they don't yet have is a tournament pedigree that guarantees he'll keep getting the service to prove it. And maybe that is what makes Norway so dangerous as a story. They are not expected to control this World Cup. They are not France, Argentina, Brazil, or England. They do not carry the same pressure to win every match like a superpower. But they do carry something that every favorite hates facing: a simple, repeatable threat. 1 ball over the top, 1 loose pass, 1 Ødegaard through ball, 1 defender switching off for half a second. That is all Norway need to make a match chaotic. In tournament football, chaos is often enough. The best teams do not always lose to the most complete opponent. Sometimes they lose to the opponent with the one weapon they cannot fully solve. So where does this actually leave Norway and the rest of the World Cup after one match? Cautiously, genuinely terrified if you're anyone drawn against them. Because even acknowledging every fair concern about Norway's inexperience, what we already know is this: Erling Haaland has now scored on his debut at every single major level he's ever played at. Bundesliga, Champions League, Premier League, and now the World Cup. There is a pattern here that goes well beyond coincidence. Big stage, bigger expectation, and somehow every single time he simply delivers more. Ødegaard pulling strings in midfield, Sorloth and the rest of the supporting cast giving Norway actual attacking depth beyond their main man, and Haaland, at 25 years old, finally playing on the stage his talent always deserved, with 57 international goals already in the bank and an entire nation finally believing, after 28 years, that this time really could be different. France will be the real test, a genuine measuring stick against one of the best squads in the entire tournament. But whatever happens in that game, one thing is already clear from the opening 90 minutes of this World Cup. The rest of this tournament does not have an Iraq problem, or a Senegal problem, or even really a Norway problem. They have a serious, undeniable Erling Haaland problem. And after 28 years of waiting, he looks more than ready to make every single team in this competition pay for it. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more content like this. Also, don't forget to hit the notifications bell so you never miss a beat. And with that, we'll see you in the next video.